Dear all, myself Jyoti Mankar, Assistant Professor, Computer Engineering Department, KK Institute of Engineering Education and Research, Nasik. Today I am going to explain data decomposition methods. This topic is included in high performance computing subjects. These are the learning objectives of today's session. First, to study basics of decomposition. Second, to study the data decomposition method. These are the learning outcomes of today's session. At the end of this session, student will be able to explain basic concept of decomposition and student will be able to describe data decomposition method or technique. Let's start with introduction part. So first we'll see definition of decomposition. The process of dividing a computation into smaller part, some or all of which may potentially be executed in parallel, is called decomposition. That means entire task will be divided into number of subtasks is called as decomposition. So there are multiple methods, multiple way to perform the decomposition. So the tasks are a programmer defined unit of computation into which the main computations is subdivided by means of decomposition. So the process of dividing a computation into smaller part is called as decomposition, and that task will be executed parallelly, will be executed concurrently. So tasks can be of arbitrary size. They are regarded as individual unit of decomposition. The task into which a problem is decomposed may not all be of the same size. Task size will be vary depend on the main task. Now next is preliminaries of decomposition, task and dependency graph. As we have seen the definition of decomposition, so we can divide entire task into number of subtasks, that is called as decomposition. Now first step in developing a parallel algorithm is to decompose the problem into tasks that can be executed concurrently. Yes, a given problem may be decomposed into tasks in many different ways. Tasks may be of same size, different type or some even intermediate size. A decomposition can be illustrated in the form of one graph called as directed graph with nodes corresponding to tasks, and edges indicate that the result of one task is required for processing the next. Such a graph is called as task dependency graph. As mentioned earlier, this is one of the fundamental steps that we need to undertake to solve a problem in parallel. So, is to split the computation to be performed into a set of tasks for concurrent execution, and it is defined by the task dependency graph. So in this lecture we will see one method of decomposition called as data decomposition methods. So for a given decomposition, it not always guarantee to lead to the best parallel algorithm for a given problem. Despite of such a shortcomings, the decomposition technique described in the given session provide a good starting point of many problems, and one or a combination of these techniques can be used to obtain effective decomposition for a large variety of problems. This decomposition is divided into number of methods. First is data decomposition, second is recursive decomposition, then exploratory decomposition and speculative decomposition, and finally is hybrid, means combination of above. So question is that, so how does one decompose a task into various subtasks? So answer is, there is no single recipe that works for all problems. We present a set of commonly used techniques that apply to broad classes of problem, and these include these 4 methods, and last one is mixing of these decomposition methods. So among these methods, The recursive and data decomposition techniques are relatively general purpose as they can be used to decompose a wide variety of problems. On the other hand, speculative and exploratory decomposition techniques are more of a special purpose as nature because they apply to specific classes of problem. So we will see here general purpose method, that is data decomposition method. Now let's begin with data decomposition. So here first identify the data on which computations are performed. Second one is partition this data across various tasks. Third is this partitioning induce a decomposition of the problem. And finally, data can be partitioned in various ways. These critically impact performance of a parallel algorithm. So, data decomposition is a powerful and commonly used method for deriving concurrency in algorithm that operate on large data structure. In this method, the decomposition of computations is done in two ways. So first step is the data on which computations are performed is partitioned, and in second step this data partitioning is used to induce a partitioning of the computation into the task. So it is mainly depend on these two steps. The operation that these tasks perform on different partitioning are usually similar. We will see one example how it can be performed. So partition of the data can be performed in many possible ways. In general, one must explore and evaluate all possible ways of partitioning the data and determine which one yield a natural and efficient computation decomposition. So here three terms are very important in data decomposition. First is output data decomposition, second is input data decomposition, and third one is intermediate data partitioning. We will see one by one. Let's start first one, that is output data partitioning or output data decomposition. So here often each element of the output can be computed independently of others but simply as a function of the input, and partition of the output across tasks decompose the problem naturally. We will see one example of matrix multiplication. Now consider the problem of multiplying two n by n matrices, say A and B, to yield a matrix C. So here C is a resultant matrix. The output matrix C can be partitioned into four tasks as follow. Now see, it is A matrix, this is B matrix. Okay, so here A11, A12, A21 and A22. These are the block of A matrix. This is the B matrix. This is the output matrix. It is normal matrix multiplication. So here A11, B11 plus A12 then B21 equal to C11. This is normal matrix multiplication. So here four tasks will get generated. C11, C12, C21 and C22. So in this way we can go for decomposition. Okay, but this is not a same way for decomposition. Some programmer may apply different logic for decomposition. So here now see, most matrix algorithm include matrix vector, and matrix multiplication can be formulated in terms of block matrix operation. In such a formulation, matrix is viewed as composed of block or submatrices, and the scalar arithmetic operations on its elements are replaced by the equivalent matrix operation on that block. The result of the element and the block version of this algorithm are mathematically equivalent. So here block version of matrix algorithm are often used in decomposition. So here four tasks will get generated. Now see second one, a partitioning of the output data does not result in a unique decomposition into tasks. For example, for the same problem, As in previous slide, with identical output data distribution, we can derive the following two other decomposition. Now see here, in previous case, C11 equal to A11 B11 plus A12 B12. Some programmer may consider this as a one term, this as a second term. Okay, so C11 having two tasks. So task 1 is this one, task 2 is this. Okay, we will get task 1 plus task 2 equal to C11. Similarly, we can explore the task. So here C11 equal to A11 B11 and likewise. In this way, this is one of the method, this is another method. So task may vary from programmer to programmer. This is task is not a fix, but there are multiple way to go for decomposition. So here decomposition shown is based on partitioning the output matrix C into 4 submatrices, and each of 4 tasks compute one of these submatrix. So here for a given decomposition, rather we can say for a given data decomposition does not result in a unique decomposition into task. So it depends on the programmer. Now we will see one more example of output data decomposition. Consider the problem of counting the instances of a given item set in a database of transaction. So in this case, output, that is item set frequency, can be partitioned across the tasks. Now see here, this is the item sets. You can say it is a transaction database. These are the item sets and this is the frequency of the item set. Means, for example, item set DE having frequency 3 means the item set DE is available in transaction database 3 times. So it occur 3 times. So here frequency is 3. Likewise, these are the frequencies calculated for that item set using the transaction data set. Okay, so here B figure indicate that partitioning the frequency and item set among the tasks. Now see here, 10 transaction sets are there as well as 10 item set and their frequency. Now here we can partition the item set into 4 and equal or half of the part. So here 1, 2, 3, 4 are in one set, next 4 are another set. So in this way we can partition the item set. Now, so in this figure it consists of 10 transactions and we are interested in computing the frequency of the 8 item sets shown in this column and the actual frequency of those item set in the database, which are the output of frequency computing program as shown in the third column. For instance, item set say DK appears twice, once in a second and once in a 9th transaction. So frequency is 2. In this way we can calculate the frequency. Now in second case, partition the frequency and item set among the tasks. In such a way we can go for decomposition. Now output data decomposition. From the previous example, the following are the observation. So here if the database of transaction is replicated across the processes, each task can be independently accomplished with no communication. Then second, if the database is partitioned across processes as well, each task first compute partial count and these count are then aggregated at the appropriate task. These two are observations made in the output data decomposition. Now, input data partitioning. Generally applicable if each output can be naturally computed as a function of input. So here, partitioning of output data can be performed only if each output can be naturally computed as a function of input. So in many applications or in many algorithms, it is not possible or desirable to partition the output data. For example, while finding minimum or maximum or sum of set of numbers, the output is a single unknown value. At that time, output partition method becomes fail. So here, in a sorting algorithm, the individual elements of the output cannot be efficiently determined in isolation. So in such a cases, it is sometimes possible to partition the input data and then use this partitioning to induce the concurrency. So there is a need of input data partitioning. So task is associated with each input data partitioning. The task perform as much of the computations with its part of the data. Subsequent processing combines this partial result. Now let's see the example. Now see the example of input data partitioning. We'll continue same example of transaction database here. The problem of computing the frequency of a set of item set in a transaction database can also be decomposed based on the partitioning of the input data. In previous section, we can see by using a output data. Now here we can use the input data partitioning method. Now see here, this is transaction database and this is item sets and these are the frequency. So as there are 10 transaction database, here 8 item sets, we have to calculate the frequency. It is shown in third column. Now here we can decompose or we can divide the item set or we can divide the transaction data set into two part. 5 row we can separate it. So in this figure, task 1 having 5 rows in database, in task 2 next 5 rows in database. So in this way we can decompose the given task into number of subtasks. So this is the comes under input data partitioning. Why? Here we can divide the input into two parts, name as a task 1 and task 2. Similarly, we can have a multiple way to perform the input data partitioning. Depends on the programmer. Now, partitioning input and output data. So we have seen now output data partitioning, input data partitioning. So often input and output data decomposition can be combined for a higher degree of concurrency, and for the item set counting example, the transaction set input, item set count, that is output, called as a frequency, can both be decomposed as follow. So we can have again we can revise the things. Transaction data set having 10 rows, 8 item set and their frequency. So we can divide half of the first 5 row in first task 1 along with half of the item sets and their frequency. Similarly, first 5 database transaction set and next item set and their frequency. Similarly, we can perform the decomposition of input and output. So in this way, here 4 tasks will get generated. Task 1, task 2, 3 and 4. So in this way, we can have a input and output data partitioning. Now next one is intermediate data partitioning. So here computations can often be viewed as a sequence of transaction from the input to the output data. So in this case, it is often beneficial to use one of the intermediate stage as a basis of decomposition. We will see one example of intermediate data partitioning. So here let us revisit the example of dense matrix multiplication. We first show how we can visualize this computation in terms of intermediate matrix D. So now here A11, A12, we can divide the first row, first column. Likewise here we can make them separate, and there is a intermediate matrix is formed D11, D112, D121 and D122. Likewise, so here A matrix we can multiply with B matrix will generate C matrix. but there is one more intermediate matrix, that is the computations obtained from A and B matrices. So instead of directly C matrix, there is one intermediate matrix is formed. So this is the concept of intermediate data partitioning. Okay, we'll see again. Now here, a decomposition of intermediate data structure leads to the following decomposition into 8 plus 4 tasks. Now see here, stage 1 A matrix and B matrix. Resultant is, as we know, C matrix, but here there is one more term called as intermediate matrix, say D. So how it forms? Okay, now from stage 2 there is a addition of D matrix will get resultant C matrix. Okay, so first 2 rows of this matrix and next 2 perform the addition will get C matrix. Now see here, again here total 12 tasks are formed. Again it depend on the programmer, depend on the user in at what way he or she can perform the task distribution. So here, so always task is vary from programmer to programmer, it is not fixed. So here let's see, task 1 equal to D11. So it is A11, B11, it is normal matrix multiplication. So task 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and lastly 12. So in this example, total 12 tasks is getting generated, but it not happens every time. Task is not a fixed, it may vary from programmer to programmer. So this is the main concept behind intermediate data partitioning. Instead of directly result, there is one more term is formed, that is called as intermediate term. So it is example of intermediate data partitioning. Okay, so this is about the data decomposition method. Example, the task dependency graph for the decomposition into 12 tasks as follow. Now here this is task dependency graph generated. So here task 9 is dependent on task 1 and 2. Task 10 is dependent on 3 and 4. Similarly 11 is dependent on 5 and 6. 12 is dependent on 7 and 8. We'll see how task 9 is dependent on 1 and 2. So here task 9 is this one, C11 equal to D111 plus D211. So D111 means task 1 and D2,1,1 means this is task 4. So here task 9 is dependent on or addition of task 1 and task 4. So task 2. So we can draw the task dependency graph in this way. Task 9 is dependent on 1 and 2. Task 10 is dependent on 3 and 4 and so on. Finally task 12 dependent on 7 and 8. So in this fashion task dependency graph is generated for the decomposition. So this is all about the data decomposition method. Now there is one rule called as owner computes rule. So this owner compute rule generally state that processes assign a particular data item is responsible for all computations associated with it. Means once we can assign that data to particular processor, then that process will be wholly responsible for completion of that task. Second is, in the case of input data decomposition, the owner compute rule implies that all computations that use the input data are performed by the processor, and in the case of output data decomposition, the owner compute rule implies that the output is computed by the processes to which output data is assigned. So this is all about data decomposition. Now we can conclude here. So in today's session we have seen method of data decomposition, or we can say data decomposition techniques. We have seen 3 terms with the help of an example. First term is input data partitioning, output data partitioning and intermediate data partitioning. So this is all about data partitioning or data decomposition method. Thank you.